Welcome to the Daily History Chronicle. Each day, we travel back to discover a pivotal moment that changed the world. These aren't just dates and facts. They're stories of courage, conflict, innovation, and consequence that still echo through our lives today. Are you ready to explore? Let's see what happened on this day in history.
Good morning and welcome to today's episode. I'm Richard Backus, publisher of University Teaching Edition, and every day I get to share a piece of history that I think you'll find as fascinating as I do. On January 9th, 2007, Steve Jobs walked onto a stage at the Macworld Conference in San Francisco and changed everything. Not gradually, not eventually. That afternoon, he stood in his black turtleneck and blue jeans, looked out at the audience and said, "Every once in a while, a revolutionary product comes along that changes everything." He'd said things like that before. Apple people always talk that way. But this time, he meant it literally. And here's what fascinates me about this moment. Almost nobody in that room, including some of Apple's own executives, fully understood what they were about to witness. They thought they were seeing a new gadget. They were actually seeing the end of one world and the beginning of another. Picture this: Moscone Center, San Francisco, January 9th, 2007. The auditorium is packed with journalists, analysts, and Apple faithful. Jobs has been building anticipation for weeks. Rumors have swirled about an iPhone, but details are scarce. Apple's secrecy is legendary, and this time they've outdone themselves. Jobs begins with a tease. Today, we're introducing 3 revolutionary products. The crowd leans forward. The first is a widescreen iPod with touch controls. Cheers. The second is a revolutionary mobile phone. Bigger cheers. And the third is a breakthrough internet communications device. He repeats them: iPod, phone, internet device, iPod, phone, internet device. Then he grins. Are you getting it? These are not 3 separate devices. This is one device, and we are calling it iPhone. The room erupts. What they don't know is that backstage, Apple engineers are terrified. The iPhone Jobs is about to demonstrate is held together with hope and duct tape. The software crashes constantly. The hardware overheats. The radios interfere with each other. Engineers have discovered what they call the golden path, a precise sequence of demonstrations that usually works. Email first, then Safari, then photos, then music, then the phone call. Do them in that order, and you have maybe a 50-50 chance of getting through without a crash. Do them in any other order, and the device freezes. They've set up multiple iPhones backstage, each loaded to a different point in the demo, so if one crashes, Jobs can smoothly switch to another while a technician frantically reboots. The engineers have been drinking scotch backstage to calm their nerves. Andy Grignon, the senior radio engineer, later recalled, "We were all just terrified." Jobs knows how fragile it is. He's been practicing for days. He's memorized the golden path. He's prepared for every contingency. And now he walks out on that stage and performs 90 minutes of live demonstration on a device that his own engineers privately call a disaster waiting to happen. He pulls it off flawlessly. Not a single crash. Not a single glitch. Of course he does. This is Steve Jobs. But the people cheering in that auditorium have no idea how close they came to watching the most anticipated product launch in tech history fall apart in real time. Let me build the context here, because this wasn't just a product launch. It was an assassination. In January 2007, the mobile phone industry was dominated by giants. Nokia controlled 49% of the global market. They'd sold over 1 billion phones. Motorola had the Razr, the coolest phone on the planet. BlackBerry owned the business market. Every executive, every lawyer, every person who mattered had their thumbs on those little keyboards. Palm had pioneered the smartphone concept. Microsoft's Windows Mobile ran on dozens of devices. These companies had armies of engineers, decades of experience, and relationships with every carrier on Earth. Apple had never made a phone. Never. They were a computer company that happened to sell music players. The idea that they could walk into the mobile industry and compete with Nokia was laughable. The very suggestion would have gotten you thrown out of analyst meetings. Here's what the experts said. Steve Ballmer, CEO of Microsoft, laughed out loud when asked about the iPhone in a television interview. Actually laughed. $500, fully subsidized, with a plan? He kept laughing, couldn't stop himself. That is the most expensive phone in the world, and it doesn't appeal to business customers because it doesn't have a keyboard, which makes it not a very good email machine. A Nokia executive dismissed it as a niche product that would appeal only to Apple fans. Nokia had been making phones since 1987. They'd shipped over 1 billion units. They'd survived the transition from analog to digital, from brick phones to flip phones. They thought they understood the market better than anyone. They were planning their next generation of smartphones, devices with real keyboards, proper buttons, interfaces designed by people who'd been doing this for decades. BlackBerry's co-CEO, Mike Lazaridis, reportedly watched the keynote, noted that the iPhone had no physical keyboard and couldn't do email efficiently, and went back to work. BlackBerry owned the enterprise market. Every executive, every lawyer, every politician had one. The White House used BlackBerry. Wall Street used BlackBerry. The idea that business customers would abandon their keyboards for a touchscreen seemed absurd. The chief strategy officer at Palm, Ed Colligan, delivered perhaps the most confident dismissal. We've learned and struggled for a few years here, figuring out how to make a decent phone. PC guys are not going to just figure this out. They're not going to just walk in. Every single one of them was wrong. Catastrophically, company-killingly wrong. Within 6 years, Nokia's phone business would be sold to Microsoft for $7.2 billion, a fraction of what it had been worth, and Microsoft would write off nearly the entire purchase within 2 years. BlackBerry's market share collapsed from 20% to less than 1%. Palm would be sold to HP, then shut down entirely. Motorola's mobile division would be bought by Google for $12.5 billion, then sold to Lenovo for less than $3 billion. Microsoft's Windows Phone would launch, struggle, and eventually be abandoned. The PC guys walked in, and they burned the village down. But here's where it gets complicated. And this is what I find myself thinking about. The iPhone didn't just change the phone industry, it changed us. And I'm not sure we fully reckoned with that. Before January 9th, 2007, most people experienced the internet in sessions. You went to a computer, you logged on, you did your email or browsed some websites, you logged off, you went back to your life. The internet was a place you visited. After the iPhone, the internet became the air we breathe, always there, always on, always in your pocket. The consequences unfolded faster than anyone predicted. By July 2008, Apple launched the App Store, and suddenly anyone could build software for this pocket computer. Within a year, there were 65,000 apps. Within 5 years, over 1 million. Instagram launched in 2010. A company that could only exist because of smartphone cameras and always-on connectivity. It had 13 employees when Facebook bought it for $1 billion. Snapchat arrived in 2011, Uber in 2009. TikTok came later, but the infrastructure Jobs built made it possible. The iPhone created the attention economy before we had a name for it. It created the gig economy. It created the influencer. It created the notion that you should be reachable by your employer at any hour of any day. It created the expectation that you can summon a car, order food, find a date, or watch any movie ever made while standing in line at the grocery store. Think about what we've gained. You have the Library of Congress in your pocket. Actually, you have more than that. You have real-time access to the sum total of human knowledge, updated continuously. You can video call anyone on Earth for free. You can navigate anywhere without ever unfolding a paper map. You can translate conversations in real time. You can learn any skill from experts who post tutorials for free. During the pandemic, these devices were our lifelines. Remote work, remote school, remote connection to family we couldn't touch. Telemedicine happened on iPhones. Democracy movements organized on them. Dictators fell because of videos recorded on smartphone cameras. Now think about what we've lost. The average American checks their phone 144 times per day. Teenage mental health has cratered since 2012, with smartphone adoption tracking almost perfectly with rising rates of anxiety, depression, and self-harm among adolescents. We've become a species that can't sit alone with our thoughts for 30 seconds without reaching for a screen. Restaurants have couples staring at phones instead of each other. Parents miss their children's first steps because they're scrolling. We've traded boredom, which is when humans do their most creative thinking, for an endless stream of content designed by algorithms to keep us engaged at any cost. Both things are true. Both things matter. Here's what troubles me about this story. Steve Jobs knew, or at least he suspected. Jobs famously limited his own children's screen time. He didn't let them use iPads. In a 2010 interview, when asked what his kids thought of the iPad, he said, "They haven't used it. We limit how much technology our kids use at home." The man who sold us these devices protected his own family from them. Was he a hypocrite? Maybe. Or maybe he understood something he couldn't say publicly. That the product he'd created was so compelling, so perfectly designed to capture attention that it required careful management even by the people who made it. The iPhone succeeded because Jobs understood something his competitors didn't. Nokia and BlackBerry thought they were making phones with some computer features. Jobs thought he was making a computer with some phone features. That difference in framing changed everything. But it also meant he was building a device optimized for engagement, for time on screen, for what would later become the metrics that drive social media companies to engineer addiction. Did he know where it would lead? I don't think so. Nobody predicted TikTok in 2007. Nobody predicted algorithmic feeds designed by thousands of engineers to maximize engagement at any cost. But Jobs planted the seed. The technology critic Neil Postman once wrote, "Every technology is both a burden and a blessing. Not either or, but this and that." He was writing about television, but he could have been prophesying the iPhone. We're 18 years into the iPhone era now, and we're still sorting through the consequences. Some of them are wonderful. A farmer in Kenya can access banking services for the first time in history. A kid in rural Arkansas can take online courses from MIT. Revolutions have been organized on these devices. Lives have been saved by them. Some consequences are troubling. We've fragmented into information bubbles. We've lost the ability to be bored, which, it turns out, is when humans do their most creative thinking. We've given away our privacy in exchange for convenience, feeding surveillance systems that would have horrified George Orwell. And some consequences we haven't even discovered yet. The iPhone is only 18 years old. The printing press took centuries to reshape civilization. We're in the first chapter of a very long story. What Jobs unveiled on January 2007, was not really a phone. It was a new relationship between humans and information, a new relationship between humans and each other, a new relationship between humans and their own attention. The executives at Nokia and BlackBerry looked at the iPhone and saw a phone without a keyboard. They missed the point entirely. They were thinking about how people would make calls. Jobs was thinking about how people would live. That's why he won. And that's also why we're still grappling with what he created. I'm Richard Backus, and this is the Daily History Chronicle. Tomorrow, we'll explore another moment that shaped our world. Until then, think about this. When was the last time you went an entire day without touching a smartphone? An entire hour? The device in your pocket is the most carefully designed attention-capturing machine in human history. What do you want to do with your attention today? Because that's what January 2007 teaches us. Not just about innovation or business or technology, but about the choices we make with the tools we're given, and whether we control them or they control us. Thank you for your time. If you enjoyed this episode, then please subscribe. If you really enjoyed it, then please tell a friend. I hope you will join me again tomorrow for more of our shared history.